And so as I listen to you say this, I'm also wondering, as probably many of us are, how do you know if you're doing it right?
Yes. Yes, this is such a huge question. And honestly, for me, the longer I meditate, it's not like this question goes away, it just becomes more subtle. So the first thing I want to say is ultimately, if you're sitting on your cushion, you can't be that wrong. I think we often come to some sort of new practice or new skill that we're learning with a sense of like, well, if I do it right, it's going to look a certain way. And the thing that makes meditation both like amazing and also kind of challenging is that there's no one right way. Like you don't know when you've arrived. I mean, there's not really an arrival destination. So I think the idea that one day we're going to do it right often actually sabotages what we actually are doing. So if my idea of meditation is that like the ultimate meditation would be I sit down, my mind is quiet for like 2 hours, and then I get up and I've had like insights into the nature of reality, I'm probably never going to have that experience. And I think that's part of what can be frustrating to people about meditation is they always feel like, well, my session was less bad today, but it still wasn't good. So I prefer to think of this as failing better, like how to fail better at meditation. Because honestly, you're always meditation practice isn't about just sitting down and doing it right. It's about developing the skills to bring your mind back to the object of meditation again, developing the skill of kindness toward yourself. So it's always a work in progress. But I think it's been true for me, and I think this is true for a lot of people. Um, Over the years, you really get to know yourself better. You get to know your mind better. You become friends with your mind. So you're still not necessarily meeting some like bar potentially set too high for what meditation should look like, but it becomes more comfortable. It becomes like fuel for your life instead of a thing that you have to do because you made a New Year's resolution. So I guess it's a long-winded answer to try and say, if you feel like you're doing it wrong, great. What does it feel like to think you're doing it wrong? Pay attention to that. And instead of feeling like, oh, I'm not doing this right, are you feeling better? Are you feeling better than you did 2 months ago, or a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 5 years ago? So it may be helpful to have regular instruction. It'd be great to have interaction with a teacher. It'd be great to have friends who meditate with you. But the main thing is just keep going, keep being kind, and keep being curious with yourself. And if you're doing those things, I don't want to say you're doing it right or wrong, but you're probably learning how to fail better and better every time you sit.
That's great. So two things stand out to me in response to what you said. One is I'm reflecting on how much we live in a culture that emphasizes results over process. And what I'm hearing you say is that a huge part, if not the core essence of meditation, is attention to process.
Yes. You just nailed it. I feel like you condensed what I just said into like one pithy sentence. That's awesome.
Thanks. Well, good. And one other thing that also stands out to me in response to what you said is the fact that we live in a culture or a time period of kind of deference to experts to some extent. And we want to be guided by an expert. And what I'm hearing you say is that our subjective experience is what matters a lot, and that's what we need to be paying attention to. And it's kind of a balancing act. On one hand, being open to fresh input from others, from a community, from teachers, from instruction, and at the same time, paying attention to our subjective experience. And the way it is, it's fine. It's exactly the material that we need to keep growing and keep practicing. Does that sound right to you?
Yes, exactly. It is helpful to to learn techniques, but really that's like the least of it. You know, it's also helpful to be reflected. It's helpful to have somebody you can check in with and tell, you know, what's going on with your meditation practice. And they can be like, yeah, that's great. That's a great obstacle to encounter. Um, so yeah, I think at the end of the day, you're the expert on your own mind. And all the external experts, their job is just to help you develop the skills to know yourself better. And at the end of the day, in Tibetan Buddhism, even with this emphasis on, you know, the teacher and these sort of external seeming Buddhas, those are just reflections of our own wisdom. And I think whether you're meditating in a spiritual context or religious context or neither of those, you just want a little bit more like peace and self-knowledge. At the end of the day, um, you should be your own center point, your own really expert on what works for you and how your mind is, and how to work with your mind for just greater ease and clarity during the day.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.